Once upon a time, in a serene meadow nestled between rolling hills, there lived a sheep named Wooly. Wooly was not just any sheep. He was particularly cheerful, with a coat as fluffy as clouds and a heart full of joy. Every day, Wooly embraced his life with boundless enthusiasm. He loved exploring the meadow, nibbling on the tender grass, and playing with his fellow sheep. The meadow was a picturesque paradise. Wildflowers painted the landscape in vibrant hues, butterflies flitted about, and the gentle hum of bees filled the air. Wooly's favorite time of day was when the sun cast its golden light over the meadow, making everything look like a scene from a dream. Wooly's days were filled with simple pleasures. He'd race with the lambs, roll in the soft grass, and bask under the large oak tree that stood proudly in the middle of the meadow. Each evening, he'd gaze up at the stars, feeling grateful for the wonderful life he led. One bright morning, as Wooly was enjoying a particularly juicy patch of clover, he saw Mr. Thompson, the farmer, approaching with a friendly wave. Mr. Thompson was a kind and gentle man, always treating Wooly and the other animals with care. He'd sing cheerful songs while working in the fields and often brought treats for the animals. Wooly liked Mr. Thompson and felt secure whenever he was around. On this day, Mr. Thompson carried a basket with shears. Wooly's little heart fluttered with anticipation. It was time for his annual shearing, a process he had come to enjoy. The shearing made him feel lighter and more refreshed, and he always looked forward to the moment when he could prance around with his newly trimmed coat. "Good morning, Wooly," Mr. Thompson called out cheerfully as he approached. "Time for your shearing." Wooly hopped onto the wooden platform Mr. Thompson had set up. The sun was shining, and a gentle breeze rustled through the grass. Mr. Thompson began to shear Wooly's thick, fluffy coat. Wooly closed his eyes and savored the cool air on his skin, enjoying the rhythmic snip-snap of the shears and the soft hum of Mr. Thompson's voice. But as the shearing continued, Wooly sensed a change. The atmosphere around him seemed to shift, and Mr. Thompson's usually warm demeanor grew more somber. The cheerful humming stopped, replaced by a tense silence. Wooly opened his eyes and looked up at Mr. Thompson, who now had a troubled expression on his face. Mr. Thompson gently laid down the shears and took a deep breath. "Wooly, I need to tell you something," he said softly. "I'm afraid today is different. It's time for you to leave this meadow." Wooly's heart raced with confusion and fear. He looked around at the familiar sights, the waving flowers, the playful lambs, and the gentle breeze. His friends gathered around, their faces reflecting the same uncertainty that Wooly felt. Mr. Thompson guided Wooly towards a small, cozy barn at the edge of the meadow. Wooly had never been inside the barn, and the sight of it filled him with unease. He glanced back at the meadow, his eyes lingering on the scenes of his happy life. He wanted to hold on to these moments, knowing they might be his last. Inside the barn, Mr. Thompson prepared a soft bed of straw for Wooly. The barn was warm, and the scent of hay filled the air. Mr. Thompson spoke gently, his voice trembling. "I've always tried to do what's best for you and the other animals, but today you'll be leaving us. I'm so sorry." Wooly lay down on the straw, feeling a deep sense of sadness. Despite his confusion, he focused on the warmth of the barn and the kindness in Mr. Thompson's voice. He took a deep breath, reflecting on his happy days in the meadow. As Mr. Thompson moved to prepare for the final step, Wooly's heart was heavy. He tried to comfort himself with thoughts of the meadow, imagining running through endless fields and basking in the eternal sunshine. He hoped that somehow his spirit would live on in the beauty he cherished. Mr. Thompson's face was filled with sorrow as he approached Wooly. With a final, gentle pat, he whispered, "I'm sorry, Wooly. Thank you for all the joy you've brought into this world." With that, Mr. Thompson carried out his somber task. Wooly's life came to a quiet end, his spirit drifting away from the barn. As the barn's light dimmed, Wooly's thoughts turned to the meadow he loved so dearly. In the meadow, the flowers continued to bloom, the butterflies fluttered, and the breeze whispered tales of Wooly's joyful existence. His friends, though saddened, remembered him fondly and carried his memory with them. Wooly's life, filled with the simple joys of the meadow, became a cherished chapter in the meadow's story. Though he was no longer there to prance among the flowers, his spirit lingered in the beauty of the meadow. Forever a part of the landscape he had loved so much.